Bye. Okay, we're live now on Facebook. So good evening, everyone. So good evening, Mandy.
Everyone.
Okay, so before we start, we would like to shout out Miss Amara from UK. So she gave her spot for one of our members tonight. So thank you, Miss Amara, for giving your spot. Thank you. See you next week, probably, for your assessment. Okay? So I think let's get it on, Mandy. Let's start with Maureen.
Okay, how are you, Maureen?
I'm great. Thank you for asking. How are you?
I'm good. And where are you living at?
I'm currently in the Philippines.
Okay, excellent. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. It's all right. So, Maureen, do you prefer to work in the morning or in the evening?
I am a nocturnal person, so I would prefer working in the evening. There are less noise from the outside, and it's really quiet. So
And
it would make me more comfortable working.
Good. And why is your job important to you?
Well, first of all, paying my bills would be one of the greatest factors of working. Second, to practice my profession, which is nursing. And third, I do not want to be idle. I always want to work.
And what are your responsibilities at work?
Taking care of the sick, of course. No, that would be my main job. And caring, putting myself in other shoes, empathizing. That would be my strength.
Good. And what are the ways that you can improve your skills at work?
I guess that would be routine. It's really hard for me to make a scheduled a pattern of my job in a hospital, since there are different patients with different concerns. So it's really hard to make a routine in a particular task.
Good. All right. Are you ready to go on to part 2?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we're going to have Gladys is going to put it on the screen for us, and I'll put it into the chat as well for everybody. Let me get my timer really quickly. Can you see it okay, Maureen?
Oh, yes, I can.
All right. So describe a book that you read that you found useless. You should say what it is, when you read it, why you think it is useless, and explain how you felt about it. And you can have a minute to prepare now.
Thanks.
Okay, Maureen, that is 1 minute. And when you are ready, you can give your answer.
Thanks. Okay. So when I was on my teenage years, I'm not really much of a reader. However, I have read Goosebumps, I have read Sweet Valley. Those are collection books that most of my teenage teenage friends would read as well. But one that I found useless is actually reading Sweet Valley High. Sweet Valley High is a book about love stories, their childhood sweethearts, and that sort. I would say I had found it useless because who would that the stories that I have read during those years were, you know, I felt now that it did not help me in any way with, you know, with my life. So the love stories are way different from the books and from the movies and from real life. As I have said, it was my teenage years. So most teenagers would say, yeah, I'd like to read that, whatever. But they would think that they would, children of my age at that time would think that they can apply that in their lives, which it did not. And it still does not, as based on my experience. And but right now, however, I felt that it contributed to an advantage that I have had, however, with reading those useless books were the contribution to my English skills somehow. Reading, it doesn't matter whatever the story is, whether it's interesting or not, would definitely contribute to your, you know, vocabulary, or it helps somehow with my English skills.
Excellent. All right. And Maureen, what makes a person easy to talk to?
If one person would be conceived as kind, if a person is always smiling, approachable, then that would make them easy to talk to. And if a person would be emotionally accommodating, one can always feel that with one person in one look, I guess.
And why is it hard for some people to express their feelings?
Sometimes people are not comfortable sharing their experiences, especially if there are not good or great experiences. Sometimes one person is really sad and they're afraid that they might affect another person's current emotion at that time. So they do not, some people would not want to influence other people's feelings, I would say.
Okay, good. What's the difference between males and females in terms of expressing their feelings?
Females are great expressors. They, if they are, if they like someone, if a girl likes a boy, they would show it to them. They would feel Twitter-pated, I guess, every time a boy comes running or comes walking towards you, especially if a boy is really cute. However, males would find it difficult to express because it would make them less manly, less masculine if they show their feelings. And that would, yeah, and that would be, I guess, considered a weakness for men.
Good. And why do you think people these days are not as open as those in the past?
With all the things going on everywhere, especially right now, for example, the COVID situation in the world. So everyone is experiencing a bit of anxiety, frustration, like they're not able to do the things they want to do. So they have this reservations. So one would affect another person's emotions if you take everything down on them. So if you share your frustrations, one may have a bit of anxiety or frustration for themselves. So that would definitely affect how they feel as well. It would make it worse. That sometimes is how I feel.
Good. And that concludes the speaking portion. You got some really broad questions here, which are hard to answer in my opinion.
Oh.
They are,
I'm so
especially the last part, talking about feelings and emotions is not very easy. So some things that I love, Maureen, is the rate at which you talk, and your pronunciation is just beautiful. So you said some really
Thank you.
difficult words, and you said them at a very easy pace. And I don't know if it's if our connection is delayed a little bit, but sometimes when you would pause, I thought maybe you were done, but that might be different when you're taking the exam in person, that they can read your body language that you're not done. So just be careful of that when you're talking in the future, that if you're not done, don't pause too long because they'll
Yeah.
move on.
I get blank.
Had more idea. Did you draw a blank? Yeah, that's okay. And you know, you can kind of, it's a hard one because like if you want to be done, you can be done, but if you have the possibility of wanting to say more, you want to leave that door open, but you don't want them waiting for you to say more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand.
So let's start with the part one. Do you prefer to work in the morning or evening? You said, I am a nocturnal person. This is a great vocabulary word. Nocturnal, night owl. You know, I'm not an early person, or I come alive at night. So I would prefer working in the evening. You said there are less noise. So there are less noise. So just make sure you add S. There are less noises from the outside, and it's really quiet. So you could either say there is less noise and keep it the same and change your verb, or if you're going to say there are less noises. So just making sure that small grammar, you know, works together. The verb, subject verb agreement, or the verb agreement right there. And then why is your job important to you? You said, well, first of all, paying my bills would be one of the greatest factors of working. And second, to practice my profession. And third, I do not want to be idle. I want to work. So this is great. When you say first and you did it, there's always going to be a second. Maureen, because you said first, do you have to say second, or could you use a different kind of word?
I think I can use another one.
Yeah, you can. You don't have to, right? Yeah. So just in your opinion, you know, your experience with the IELTS, if someone said first, they don't have to say second, but there needs to be something that comes next, right? So you could say, well, first this, and on top of that, this, or additionally that. So, but I liked what you said, first, second, and third. So this was a great answer and really to the point. So I like the way that you also do not parrot the questions when you are answering. You are really skilled at that. So I said, why is your job important to you? Said, well, first of all, paying my bills would be one of the greatest factors of working. So you're doing a great job answering in a really natural way. Instead of saying, my job is important because, you didn't say that. You said it in a better way. And what are your responsibilities at work? You said, taking care of the sick, of course. That would be my main job. And caring. And you said empathy and empathizing. So I liked how you said, you know, showing empathy or empathizing with other people. If somebody doesn't know what empathy means, Maureen, could you give a definition really quick?
Putting yourself in another's shoe, in another situation.
Yeah. So you can feel the same way that they might feel. So if I wanted to empathize with you, I would let you give me an IELTS exam right now, right? Yeah. And I would take all of the same, you know, criticisms that I'm giving to you. So good. Excellent. So describe a book that you found useless. You made me, sorry, the last one. What are the ways that you can improve your skills at work? You said, I guess that would be routine. It's really hard for me to make a scheduled or a pattern of my job in the hospital, since there are different patients with different needs, you know, different situations. So this is what you need to work on. So what is a way that you could do this? Can you expand it a little bit and tell me how you could do this? Could you write down your schedule? Could you type it into your phone? What could you do to help yourself have a routine?
I don't know how to say it though. That's when I went blank.
That's okay.
Yeah. It just went out and then
it just came out of your mind. It just like flew away, and that's okay. That happens sometimes, but we can ask in the chat. So if, Maureen's weakness that she feels she needs to work on at work is scheduling or having a routine, what are some ways that she could describe to improve that skill? So we'll see what people say and then we'll keep going. All right. And so the book part that you found useless, you really brought me back to my teenage years reading too. You said, so when I was on my teenage year, so you're going to say when I was in my teenage years, you said, I'm not really much of a reader. However, I have read Goosebumps. I have read Sweet Valley. Those are collections that most of my teenage friends would read as well. And the one that I found useless was reading Sweet Valley High. I agree with you. It's more entertainment value than anything, right? It was a book about love stories and childhood sweethearts, and I found it useless because the stories that I have read during those years, I felt now that it did not help me in any way with my life. So the love stories are way different from real life. As I have said, it was my teenage years, so most teenagers would say, I like to read that. Children of my age at that time would think that they could apply that in their lives. But right now, however, I felt that it contributed to one advantage, which was, helping with your English skills. So very good. So even though you felt that it was mostly useless in terms of relationships and, teaching you about love and life, you said it did have one small, silver lining is what you could say, a silver lining, which is like one good aspect, is that it helped you increase your English. So good answer here. Would you recommend this book for people to still read, or do you think you would recommend something else?
I would definitely recommend something else.
Yeah, good.
If I would have children in the future, I would say they should be reading encyclopedia or something.
At least Harry Potter, right? That's more realistic. Yeah. That would help them learn lots of different names. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so good. But you did say in there, those books, reading those books where the contribution was to my reading skills. Reading, it doesn't matter, whatever the story, it definitely would contribute to your vocabulary. So you extended your answer by saying, yes, it essentially was useless in a nutshell, but there was one small sliver of useful information, and that's what I liked about it. Okay. And then the next questions are all about feelings. So did you feel this topic was difficult?
I think yes. Another weakness of mine is talking about emotions.
Okay.
Myself.
That's okay.
That was really a bit hard for me.
And that's okay. Part 3 is good because we're not talking about ourselves usually. We're talking about other people. So you can make it about anyone else. You said, I first asked you, what makes a person easy to talk to? You said if one would be conceived as kind, if one person would be conceived of kind, if a person is always smiling, approachable, that would make them easy to talk to. So we're going to say perceived instead of conceived. So perceived.
Oh, perceived, yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. It's very, very close. So if a person is perceived as kind, they are always smiling and approachable, and that makes them easy to talk to. So here, maybe you can give a specific example. So who is someone that maybe children need to have, or you're a nurse, so do you have to be easy to talk to?
Yes.
Yes.
Of course.
So you can say, let's take nurses, for example. They typically smile and speak kindly to their patients, usually. Every patient is different, right? And this makes them, or you can say this makes us, because you are one of them. This makes us feel like makes our patients feel that they can come to us with difficult topics or hard conversations, which is very important in our profession. Does that make sense to you? So if you can use an example, like we could talk about a nurse. Does a doctor have to be perceived as being kind? Not really. Not really at all. They just have to be intelligent and know what they're talking about. But the nurse is the one that you really need to be able to approach. Just like in a school situation, a teacher is someone that you want to have that ease with. A principal, not so much, but a teacher, you want them to be able to come to you with your students to be able to come to you. So you could use a specific profession or kind of person as an example. Good. All right. Why is it hard for some people to express their feelings? You said sometimes people are not comfortable sharing their experiences, especially if they are not good experiences. Sometimes one person is really sad and they are afraid they might affect another person's current emotion at that time. So some people would not want to influence others. I think you do a really good job with this kind of abstract concept here. I don't know how long you've been part of the IFNG group, but you can try to give an example here as well if you want to follow the Oreo format. And you could use sort of what you said, say, for example, that a person has, recently lost someone due to illness. They might not feel comfortable talking about it because it brings up bad memories, or it makes people feel sorry for them and they don't want other people's pity. So you could give a specific reason, like you said, they have not good or not great experience. So good. Or you can even talk about nurses. You guys have a lot of difficult experiences that you have at work, and you probably don't always share them at home, right? Sometimes you just keep it at work so that home can be a happy place. Yeah. And then the next one, what's the difference between males and females in terms of expressing their feelings? You said females are great expressors. So this is a great way of saying expressing their feelings. They are great expressors. I liked how you turned it into a noun. If they like someone, if a girl likes a boy, they would show it. You said show it with them or show it to them. You said, however, males would find it difficult to express because it would make them less manly, less masculine if they show their feelings. And that would be considered a weakness for men. And then you can kind of end, these are just, do you think this is a good thing that they don't express themselves? Do you think it's okay? Or this is just normal? How do you feel about that? I know you don't like sharing your feelings, so that's hard for me to ask. All right. And then I asked you, why do you think people these days are not as open in the past? So this assumes that you agree with this statement. So let me first ask you, Maureen, do you think people nowadays share less than people did in the past?
I think based on experience, yes.
Based on experience, they're more closed off?
Yeah, they're more, I don't know the word, but conservative.
Okay,
with
yeah.
their feelings, I guess.
Yeah, they don't wear their feelings on so it's called to wear their heart on their sleeve. And so it would basically, like, how we can put emojis in text messages. It'd be like, oh, she has this emoji on her, so that's how she's feeling, or he has that emoji, so that's how he's feeling. So you're saying more people nowadays are a little bit more introverted.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I actually, if I was given this question, I would disagree with it because that's just how I feel, but you agree with it. So you said with all the things going on everywhere, especially right now, for example, in the COVID situation in the world, everyone is experiencing a bit of anxiety and frustration. They are not able to do the things they want to do. So they have these reservations. So one would affect another person's emotions if you take everything down on them, or if you put all of your feelings on them. So, or lay, sometimes we'll say to people, oh, I don't want to burden you with my problems, or I don't want to weigh you down, you know, to weigh you down. So instead of take you down, how about we say if you don't want to weigh them down. So it's literally feeling like you have the weight of someone else's emotions on you. So that would definitely affect how they feel. It would make it worse. So good. And yeah, Gladys is saying that they're introverts now, because we're kind of stuck at home. People maybe have forgotten how to share. So anyway, if I was going to give this answer, if you asked me and you picked on me for this, like I'm doing to you, why do you think people these days are not as open in the past? I would say, actually, I disagree. I think people nowadays are way more open than they were in the past. And I think that has to do with social media and the internet, that we share what we eat. We share who we are with. We share our location down to the minute and the second. Right. So we are always sharing everything. But I think that is not maybe a true picture of our feelings and emotions. That is what we want everyone to think we feel. But if we were to sit alone with ourselves, maybe that is how we are projecting and not what we are truly feeling. So that's just my personal opinion, but it doesn't have to be yours.
That's actually, I guess,
it's just a different perspective. It's not better. It's just different perspective. Yeah.
I meant that there are more examples that I can.
Yeah, sure. If you're going to look at it that way, if it's more things that you can develop, then yes, that does make it a little bit better. But yeah, so that's just another way, you know, that we can, another way that we can show that, because this question assumes that you agree with them, you don't have to agree if you don't. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, good. But I think you did an excellent job on this, Maureen. You're very easy to understand, very easy to talk to. And you seem very calm. So
I guess I was just thinking, this is just a practice. This is just a practice. So I guess that's what I should be thinking on the day of the exam.
On the day of the exam. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Does anybody else have any things that they would like to share? I don't know if Gladys is going to come back or not.
I'm here.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. Okay, so for me, Maureen, I agree with Mandy. Your long pauses seems like you're already done with your answer. So kindly avoid that. And put some emotions on your answer. Even though yes, you have a good tone. However, an emotion will make it better. Okay, so I think that's all for me.
I'll practice more.
Yes. Thank
okay,
you.
and Mr. M is saying maybe some connectors and linking words. So at first you said first, second, third. Okay, Mr. M is saying maybe some connectors. Sorry, I hear myself. That's okay. But yeah, just looking over your answers, you know, you said, let's see, let's look at the last one, or the second to last one. Females are great expressors. If they like someone, if a girl likes a boy, they would show it. So you said, however, which is a good one. You talked about males would find it difficult to express because it would make them less manly, less masculine if they show their feelings. And instead of saying, and that would be considered a weakness, you could have some kind of linking word like there. As a result, this could be considered a weakness, or, you know, because of that, it can be considered a weakness. So, or furthermore. So yeah, good. Thank you for going first, Maureen.
Thank you. I learned a lot today.
Thank you. So now let's move on with Denisa. Denisa.
Hi, hello, good evening. Hi, Mom Mandy. Hello.
Hi, how are you? Yeah, I can hear you great. How are you doing?
Okay. I'm doing great. I'm a bit nervous because it's my first time to just be on live. And
Okay.
I don't know. I hope I can control my emotion and myself.
Okay. No, you're going to do great. I know you will. Thanks for joining us. All right. Well, let's
Thank
get
you also.
started. Can you pronounce your name for me one more time?
You can call me Danisa.
Denisa?
Danisa. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Great. Excellent. All right. So, Denisa, is baking popular in your country?
Absolutely, yes. Based on my observation, nowadays online selling of those type of cupcakes, cakes are being popular here in my country, particularly in this midst of pandemic. While it is also a form of bread and butter of people living here for at least 2 years, I guess.
Good. And what types of things are baked in your country?
Well, I reckon some of them are cakes, particularly those people who loves baking. Other than that, cookies. Where actually I'm fan of doing some types of I'm fan of baking cookies, and I would love to share it with you if I have given a chance.
I would love to eat them.
Yes.
um, do you think baking is a healthy method of cooking?
Absolutely, yes. Because I would say that if those person or those people or who are really into those type of activities, there's nothing wrong of doing those doing of baking. At the same time, it can also form of hobbies and business. So I guess that doing those type of activity are beneficial.
Good. All right. And we're going to move on to part 2. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
All
Yes.
right. I'll put it into the chat and Gladys is going to put it on the screen. Let me know if you cannot see it. So, all right. And let me read it to you. So this is an interesting one. Describe a new public place or a new public building that you wouldn't like to visit. You should say where it is, what it is like, how you know about this place, and tell me why you would not like to visit. And you can have a minute to prepare now. All right, Denisa, when you are ready, you can give your answer.
Well, it's been a while since I went outside because of the COVID pandemic. And I would say that it is not advisable for everyone to just go to different kinds of places, particularly some public places, because they might caught COVID-19 virus. However, when I came across on the internet, I just saw a building has been built here in my hometown, located in Macabebe, Pampanga. Actually, I was wondering about it few months ago rather. And the name of this specific building is Maestro of the Larawan in our own vernacular language. It is a form of museum where they share or cater different kinds of art form or masterpiece. Well, I am not really fan of visiting those type of facilities because I can even I can even understand, or I don't know how to appreciate some arts or even different kinds of art form. That's why I would say that maybe in the future, if I have given a chance to visit this place, maybe I'll rather to choose another place, just like parks or even shopping mall. Because for me, I guess I will have a whale of a time if I will just visit those places compared to this specific type of museum. Other than that, I would say that they said that this museum also allow children to visit this specific place. However, I would say to those children that it is not advisable for them to go in this kind of pandemic because they might get the coronavirus, just like what I've said earlier. So I don't know which exactly it is located, but I know it is in the central part of my hometown. So maybe if there's something interesting about it in the future, maybe I would love to visit it, and I would ask my sister, her name to Nita, to accompany me, and at least just to help me to appreciate some of the stories of this specific art form.
Good. All right. And let's move on to part 3.
Mhm.
So Denise, Denise, should teachers use discipline in the classroom?
Yes, actually, I've seen a lot of educators who use this type of strategies just to whenever they communicate rather to their students. So discipline is one of the great way on how can develop respect at the same time proper etiquette. So for that reason, I would say that discipline is really essential when it comes to educator between a student.
Good.
Kinds of videos or games that they wanted, well, I was pretty amazed on how they use it.
And when should children start formal schooling?
That's a great question, but I would say that children will be allowed them to have a formal education when they already understand some of the circumstances when it comes to a school or studying. First, if they are already independent or if they can able to get far away from their parents, because sometimes they might get a shock, or they are afraid of getting away with their parents. At the same time, maybe if they can understand some of the scenarios that they might encounter on that specific school or type of formal education that they will have in the future.
And has education changed since your parents' day? Like, has it changed in the last 25 years?
Definitely, because even though that I was not born on that specific era, based on my observation and based on my grandmother's story, before the educational system of my parents or even some of my great grandparents, they said that they only allowed face-to-face learning or class inside the school, and they don't have any computers or any gadgets, particularly especially the internet connection. That's why it's hard for them to communicate with their educators or even with their classmates. While right now, I would say that it is changing for better. The educational system of my country now, right now, which is the Philippines, I would say that it is good because there are a variety of gadgets that they can use, like computers, just like what I've said. And at the same time, there are some far-flung areas located here in my country, just like Visayas and Mindanao. Well, even though that there is a poor connection on that area, but still the government gives some fund just to have those type of equipment that they can use, particularly when it comes to learning about the lessons of the students.
And do you think that education should be free?
I totally agree with that. Actually, right now here in the Philippines, the government gives some scholarship, particularly to those, especially to those less fortunate people or students. So they will give a chance to pursue their dream profession. And right now, I would say that some of the youngsters living here in my hometown, most of them have a scholar, and I felt eternally grateful with that because the government give some, I mean, give funds to the Department of Health. So Department of Education. So those are the things that I can share regarding this question.
Good. And that concludes the speaking portion. You're done?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you okay?
I'm a bit nervous, ma'am. I think my facing it's a bit fast because I can. It's like I want to share all my ideas regarding some
Yeah.
specific
I
question.
know it's hard because you have a lot of information that you know that you want to share, and you're only
Mm-mm.
given essentially 15 minutes to show off all that you have
Mm-mm.
learned in many years, and it doesn't seem fair.
Yes, mom.
Yeah, yeah. So in
Mm-mm.
this situation, you want to make sure that you kind of have a balance between sharing enough and speaking at a rate that's easy for someone to understand. Um,
Mm-mm.
and
Yes,
so,
mom. That's
yeah,
my
I,
that's
keep
my
going.
main problem.
Yeah, that's your
That's
main
my main
problem.
problem.
So
Mm-mm.
when you're speaking with your friends in your native language, do you talk fast or
Yes,
yeah, that's
yes,
just how you
actually,
talk.
because I'm a Kapampangan, that's why I'm a bit fast when it comes to talking with other people.
Okay, yeah, and that's not a problem. You do
Mm-hmm.
speak a little bit fast, so I
Mm-hmm.
would just try to, before you go into it or before you do your mock test that you're doing with your, speaking buddies, just tell
Mm-hmm.
yourself, I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
slow down. And if I'm not able to share every single idea in my head, that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because, there's a lot of opportunities throughout the whole IELTS to share your ideas. You've got the speaking and the writing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're going to be speaking English for more of your life as well. So you can show it beyond the
Yes.
IELTS. This is just a
Mm-hmm.
one shot, and it's not your entire life. So let's start at
Mm-hmm.
the first one. Is baking popular in your country? You said absolutely yes. Based on my observation, online selling of those kinds of cakes, cupcakes particularly, um, is popular. And you said it's also a form of bread and butter for people here. So it's their livelihood. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
this is great. Now, Denisa, do you know some people, can you explain for some people the difference between baking versus cooking?
Okay,
Um,
when it comes to cooking, actually, they can use, I mean, there are different kinds of cooking. They can do steaming, grilling, or at the same time frying. There are
yeah,
multiple ways. While when it comes to baking, they just, well, it's also a form of cooking, but there is a specific way. It's like more on bread,
yeah,
um, it's like more on bread, cookies, on dairy products, something like that.
exactly. Yeah. So if you have a store that's called a bakery, they
Mm-hmm.
usually have what are called baked goods, which is what you
Mm-hmm.
said, those things that are kind of breads that go
Mm-hmm.
into the oven versus on top of the oven. So,
Mm-mm.
yeah, if you are going to say, "Oh, let's bake," you know, that basically means, "Oh, we're going to make something sweet or something,
Yes.
something yummy." So good. I
Mm-mm.
like that you understood that baking is definitely a little bit different than just cooking or being a chef. So good,
Mm-mm.
excellent. And I liked how you use bread and butter as well. Um,
Mm-mm.
what types of things are baked in your country? You said, well, I reckon some of them are cakes, particularly those people who love baking. And you said, and actually cookies. I'm fond of baking cookies. And if I got the chance,
Mm-mm.
and I really
Yes.
liked how you brought yourself into this as well. So this was a
Mm-mm.
good job bringing you into the answer. And then do
Mm-mm.
you think baking is a healthy method of cooking? You said, absolutely yes. Um, there's nothing wrong with doing baking, and then at the same time it can form a hobby or a business. So
Mm-mm.
we could kind of say here that it's not the
Mm-mm.
baking that makes it
Mm-mm.
unhealthy, maybe it's the
The
ingredients.
ingredients. Yes.
Yeah, so those are the you know yeah,
Mm-mm.
baking isn't
Ah, isn't
unhealthy
unhealthy,
in and of
but
itself,
like,
but what you
mm-mm.
bake
Mm-mm.
can be
Yes, ma'am.
unhealthy. Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Um, or you can even compare it, and say baking is probably a much healthier method of cooking than eating
Yes,
out,
ma'am. Mm-mm.
because you can
Yes.
control what you're
Mm-mm.
cooking or what you
Mm-mm.
are baking. And these ones are actually kind of difficult to give a specific answer about yourself, but
Mm-hmm.
can you think of anything healthy that you have baked? if you get the chance to?
Um, I think before I bake, I instead of using baking powder is that right? Or cornstarch. I just
Mhm.
use some organic powder made up of vegetables.
Okay.
So
Yeah. So you thought of a healthier, yeah. Yeah. So you
mhm.
can say, take example for me, I have substituted, regular ingredients for ones that are more healthy.
Organic.
So they're, something that is organic and healthy. And so by doing that, it makes the baking and the items that I've baked a little bit healthier. So I don't know. This one's kind of hard for me. Maybe somebody else can throw some ideas in there.
Squash
All right.
bread.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about a squash bread. Okay. So Gladys is trying to talk about hiding vegetables in food. Describe a new public building or place. Sugar-free cakes. Okay. Yep. Those are some good ones. Describe a new public place or building that you wouldn't like to visit. Where it is, what it's like, how you knew about it, and explain why you wouldn't like to visit it. You said, well, it's been a while since I went outside because of the COVID pandemic. And I would say it's not advisable for people to go out. However, when I was going out, or you said when I was online, I came across on the internet, I just saw a building that has been built here. And you said where you live. You said, actually, I was wondering about it a few months ago. First, you said a few years ago, and then you quickly corrected yourself to a few months ago. And this is great. Correct and move on. Don't let it stop you. You said, and the name of this building is, you said it's a form of a museum where they show or, cater to lots of different forms of art. And you said, I'm not really a fan of these types of facilities. I don't know how to appreciate some arts or even different kinds of art forms. And you talked about what you are a fan of. You said, maybe I would choose a park or a shopping mall and have a whale of a time there. You said, this museum it's just, I hate to say cup of tea. It's not your cup of tea, but it's just not something you're interested in, right? Some people say it doesn't float my boat, but I wouldn't use that one. It's just something, and it's okay to say something is boring to you, and that's completely normal. You said, apart from, and you said also, other than that, this museum also allows children to visit, but I would say that it's not advisable for these children to go. And you talked about because of the pandemic. You said, I know it's in the central part of my hometown. So maybe if there's something interesting about it in the future, I would ask my sister to, go with me and help me to learn to appreciate these kinds of things. So good. Excellent.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I liked, you gave an honest answer. It's not something that you're interested in, and that's
actually
okay.
It's not true. I mean, there's no any building that has.
That's okay.
I'm just doing some story.
Yeah. And that's okay. Honestly, when I go to, when we're allowed to go out and about, if there were lots of buildings in a row and I saw a museum or even an art gallery, I would honestly skip it too, because it's just not something I'm interested in. It seems like I could spend my time better elsewhere. And sometimes they seem to cost too much money for me to go in as well. So yeah, good. Yes. Good. And then let's talk about part 3. Should teachers use discipline in the classroom? You said, yes, actually, I've seen a lot of educators. You talked about, so for that reason, I would say that it's really important or really, essential. And then the next one, can students learn from computers? This is a pretty well, yeah, of course. It's like, of course, that seems like a silly question, but your answer was great. You said, without a doubt, I would say yes. Because nowadays, because of the advent of technology, they are keen on it when it comes to using these gadgets. You said it doesn't matter if it's a computer or a laptop. I loved how at the ending you said, I'm pretty amazed at how they use it. It's intended for one way, but children have a way of making things work for them. So yeah, that's a really good answer. I love the way that you ended. I was pretty amazed. And I think that's good on this one to kind of give your opinion at the end, to talk a little bit longer. When should children start formal schooling? This one, I was having a little bit of difficulty getting exactly what you meant. Were you having trouble saying what you meant?
I don't really understand the scenario or the question regarding the formal schooling. So
formal schooling is when it's basically saying what age should kids go outside of the home and go to school. And it's not just saying in your opinion, it's just you're gonna say like you're an expert. Children should start schooling, you know, as soon as they learn how to be potty trained, or children should start school, you know, when they're 10 years old. So what is your personal opinion on when kids should begin school?
Maybe around 8 years old, because they know how to, I mean, they it's easy for them. I mean, there's this they can adapt the changes that they have that they might encounter in the school. At the same time, maybe at the age of 8 years old, maybe they have a concrete thinking when it comes to different kinds of situation that they might encounter. Actually, I don't have really any idea regarding that. That's why I'm a bit beating around the bush.
That's okay. Yeah. It's okay to beat around the bush. You just have to say it in a good way. You know, and you can kind of, to make this one, to have more content to this, you can say, you know, actually, this is a difficult question for me. I don't know if you have any kids, but we'll just say, you know, because I actually am not a parent myself. So I guess I would just go by when I went to school, which was around the age of 6. I think that was a good age to start, or I think that might have been too early for me to start, because, you know, kids at this age have a difficult time being away from their parents for a long time. And they have a, you know, they have a hard time following the school rules, like, or you can go on the other side. You could say, you know, on the other hand, school is for learning. So I think kids need to start learning at a young age so that they can, you know, be prepared for what life will bring in the future. So, you know, it's kind of, or you could even say, I think it actually depends on that specific child, you know.
Can I ask?
Yeah.
So instead, for example, if I already answered that question, that maybe can I also give some suggestion that maybe at their young age, it's better for them just to have an online schooling rather than formal schooling?
Yeah, you can definitely. So it's not that you're not deviating from the topic. So formal schooling is, you know, they have a teacher, they have a school. Well, nowadays in the pandemic, it's different, but you can even say that. You could say, you know, I think formal schooling causes a lot of kids from some separation anxiety, like what Eddie is saying. And you say, I think a good way to ease children into school would be to begin with online schooling, where they get to meet their teacher and they get to learn some basic classroom rules and how to learn some very, you know, simple academic skills. And as they get older, maybe they could go to school 1 or 2 days a week, or they could, you know, transition into schooling full time. Yeah, which is kind of what we do in the United States for preschool. You know, parents choose, is your preschooler ready to go 5 days a week, or do they want to go 1 day a week, you know? So, but that's not free education. You have to pay for that. So, so you can kind of say, you know, this is kind of a hard question because I really don't have a definite opinion on it, but and that's a good way to start out. So I loved your answer at the beginning. You said, that's a great question. And you can say, I'm not really an expert on this, but I'm going to give it a try. And that's okay. So yeah, you can definitely do that. And we can talk about when kids go to school, they have to know how to use the bathroom independently. They have to be able to eat their lunch on their own. And they also have to be able to get along with many different kinds of people. So developmentally, I think kids might be ready for that at the age of 5 or 6 years old. It really depends on their home life and what they have experienced. So yeah, I don't know. It's a hard one. And then
Yeah.
has education changed since your parents' day or in the last 25 years? You said, let's see, where's your answer? You said definitely, because even though I was not born on that specific era, so we're going to say in that specific era,
That's
based
it.
on my observation and my grandmother's stories, the education system of my parents, they said was only allowed face to face, and they didn't have any computers or gadgets. And you said, well, right now, I would say it's changing for the better. The education system here in the Philippines, it is good because there are a variety of gadgets they can use. You know, and even though some of those places have a poor connection in their areas, the government gives some kinds of, and I couldn't quite understand what you said. Do they give like money or
Give funds or
funds?
give funds, or at least donate some gadgets from the schools, just to allow the student to have those type of
Yeah.
advanced technologies.
Yeah. So yeah, that's great. So you said the government gives some kinds of funds or even, you know, the technology that kids need to succeed in school. So yeah, you compared that in the past that was only face to face and things like that. But you know, now there's a lot of new technologies that are just expected to be used in school. And Mimi says nowadays it has changed until grade 12. However, in the past, school was only until grade 10. So that was a difference. I think in my grandma's day, she's quite a bit older than your grandma probably, but in her day, school was not the child's entire life. So school was just kind of like a place they went, and the most important part of their life was their family. So for instance, in the past, if there was need for help at home or they had to work on their farm, school would be put to the side in favor of family responsibilities. Whereas nowadays, school is mandated. You can't miss school or you'll be in trouble. So that's a change that I've seen happen. And also you're talking about technology. That's a really big change too. And should education be free? You said, I totally agree with that. Actually, right now here in the Philippines, the government gives some scholarships, especially to those less fortunate people. So that's a great way of saying poor or, you know, people of a lower socioeconomic status is less fortunate people. You said, and I would say right now that some of the youngsters living here in my hometown are on those kinds of scholarships. So should education be free? Yes. So answer to me, why do you think it should be free? What is important?
Okay. The first thing that comes into my mind, it will create a lot of professionals in the future. And it is beneficial for my country because it will help them to have a better future that will boost the economy of my country.
That's perfect. That's a great answer. And you don't need to say anything more than that. So yeah, you said, I totally agree with that. Actually, the Philippines, the government here gives some scholarships to those less fortunate people. And I think the reason this is a good idea is because it helps boost our economy in the future or in the long run. If we give children education that is free and give them opportunities, they become successful, you know, contributors to society. They will have jobs, they will spend money, and that has a domino effect for the positive, you know. So yeah, definitely don't forget that why part. And you can kind of give a specific scenario. So like, let's say a child gets a free education, then they can go on to college and have a free education there and become a skilled professional that only helps our economy. It doesn't hurt. So good. Excellent. So you already said to me what your weakness was, and that was talking too fast. So I'm not going to bring that up. You already know that.
Yes,
some
I
things
know
that you really do well is you put your emotion in when you're talking, and that is not a bad thing. It's not overwhelming. And you give your answer and your opinion right away, except on that one about, you know, you didn't know how to answer about the age, but every other one you said, I totally agree with that. And you said, that's a great question. Without a doubt, yes, I've actually seen this. You also said, it's been a while since I went outside. Absolutely yes. Well, I reckon. And absolutely yes. So absolutely seems to be your favorite one, but it's not overwhelming. You have a good variety of ways to say yes. So I think you do a good job at that too.
Thank you.
So yeah, I would just try to slow down a little bit. And
Yes, ma'am.
in this situation, I hate to say less is more, but especially when if I had to choose between you having a lot of words to say or me understanding what you say, I would choose understanding all the time. You know, I don't care if you say a lot of words. If they don't make sense, they're just words or noise. So it's more important to make sense than to fill every moment with a word. But I don't hear a lot of useless words or fillers is what I wanted to say. I don't hear a lot of like, you know, you're very good.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Gladys, did you want to add anything?
No, actually, we did our practice earlier.
Oh, good. Okay. So she already knows.
And your comments are the same as mine. So Danny, no, you can still do it.
Yes,
Yeah. No, it's never too late.
Yes. Okay.
Yes, Mom. Thank you. Thank you so much for the session.
Yeah, thank you.
I know
Thank
now
you.
you gained your confidence for your exam.
Yeah.
Yes. Actually, they keep pushing me just to try this specific session with you.
Yeah. Thank you for
Just
jumping
like
in.
Sir Jeff.
Three of us,
Sir
Mandy.
Marvin. And
You pushed
Cynthia.
her. Good. That's a good push.
Thank you,
Yes.
Danny. So now
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. So now let's move on with Sir Alan. Sir Alan.
Hi.
Hi.
No. Sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry. Okay, yes. Someone coming.
That's okay. Good timing, huh?
Hi, Mandy.
Hi, how are you? Good. All right. Are you ready to get started?
Okay, Mandy. I'm ready.
All right. Is it Alan? Is that what you go by?
Yes, Alan. Yes, right.
Alan. Okay, good. It's nice to meet you. So,
Nice to
Alan,
meet you.
when did you start writing with a pen or a pencil, and why?
It was about 5 years old when my father taught me how to write a poem. Because that time, the place that I usually go to work, I usually go to school was far away. That's why they are the one who acted as a teacher. And also I use different platforms like the cardboard in order to gain my knowledge in writing in the paper.
Good. And when was the last time you bought some pens or pencils?
If my memory serves me right, it was just a week ago, because I was able to do some writing in the Ielts examinations practice, wherein I usually log into the website, then I post some pens and pencil in order to use it in the kind of activities.
Good. And did you like to write with pens or pencils when you were a child?
I preferred writing in a pen for the reason that it is permanent, of course. And then I believe that I have a good penmanship. So I usually, sometimes I do some drawings with that kind of pen in order to gain my skills and not to erase some other drawing whenever I use pencils.
Excellent. Good. All right. And we're going to move on to part 2. So do you have something to write with? Or something to
Hello.
take notes with if you want to.
Okay, Miss Tan.
All right, so Gladys is going to put it on the screen, and I went ahead and put it into the chat box. And when she's ready, I'll read it to you. All right, so Alan, describe a
Okay.
problem that affects the environment in the area where you live. You should say what the problem is, what causes it, and explain what do you think could be done to solve this problem. And you can have a minute to prepare now. Okay, Alan, that's 1 minute. And when you are ready, you can begin your answer.
Okay. Noise pollution is a modern fact happened indoors and outdoors. Today, I'm going to describe noise pollution that usually happen in my surroundings. I live in the metropolis, and I heard a lot of noise in my surrounding, particularly the vehicles, wherein sometimes they just keep horning, unable to uh, do in the busy roads. Apart from that, there are lots of environmental noise pollution that happened in the nearby place. One of which is the people who sometimes they allow music, and it contributed a lot to the people, especially when they're sometimes they studying in their school, and sometimes I heard some people they have the main contributors of noise pollution in a way that sometimes they did not uh, go to a proper lane, wherein in the pedestrian lane uh, they did not go on the right way. That sometimes it happened accident on or have a road coalition, and it's give a lot of impact when in the environment. I believe that through the authority will implement some um, law in order to lessen this kind of activity. One of which is to lessen the speed limit on the along the road in order to less to have a accident. Apart from that, they've also a good way to plant some trees in order to abate major noises. And I believe that it will absorb um, noise in the surroundings if we have a lot of trees in the road. Yes.
Okay, good. Excellent. All right, let's move on to part 3. Tell me, what do you think are the greatest environmental problems facing your country at present?
In my perspective, the pollution is the number one problem happen in the metropolis, wherein drivers sometimes they did not pay attention to their engine to maintain this kind of vehicle. Aside from that, the facility wherein particularly faculties, I mean factories that emitting a lot of waste disposal directly to the water, and as a result, it become polluted, and some other animals like fish died because of the continuous wrongdoing of this facility.
Good. And what do you think these are likely to get better or worse in the future?
Right now, there are some law that they able to prevent this kind of activities, and they give a lot of fines in order to not to continue doing this kind of activity. I guess it will lessen in the future for the reason that people nowadays are sensitive, and they can easily get news in the platforms wherein our mayors, they sometimes go live in the Facebook, and they threaten the people or the community people in order to follow the laws on how to organize the surroundings, like proper waste disposal, putting into biodegradable versus non-biodegradable materials.
Good. And is what you are studying or what you are likely to study going to be any use in solving these problems?
Sorry, can you repeat that for me?
Yeah, I know. I'm having a hard time with this one too.
Okay.
So thinking about the problems that you just mentioned to me, the pollution and the other things, are the things that you are studying going to be of any use in solving these problems?
Okay. I believe that I did some I did some activities in order to contribute to in a better way to live in terms of environment. As although it's far different from my job, which is nursing, so I believe that through through my knowledge, I will impart to the people who can easily get my idea, wherein I usually wrote an letter to my mayor in order to give them implementation how to carry this kind of pollution now happen nowadays. I believe that I can also guarantee the things that I can contribute for myself. So what I'm trying to say is I due to my weaknesses, although I'm working here in the other part of the world, so I can get an information or get an a proper thing to do in terms that in the way that the people can learn to me. I will ask some other law enforcers or authority to correct the wrongdoing of the people in my surroundings. The surroundings, I mean.
And should countries try to solve climate change problems together or individually, and why?
I guess individually, because it's the weather is different from every nation. Like here in the UAE, when usually it is hot summer, wherein they put an artificial rain in order to give to give light to the trees. Apart from that, they give a lot of they also I guess that's my point to that question.
Okay. All right. And that concludes the speaking portion of your test.
Yes.
You got some really hard questions at the end there, didn't you?
Yes, I have my hesitations. Probably.
I feel like every single question I gave you was not very easy. I apologize.
Yeah, it's okay. But
it's
me,
good to try hard ones.
Yeah, I'm thankful because I tried this kind of platform.
Good.
Thank you also to Ma'am Gladys.
Yeah, to Gladys. Thank you. Good, Alan. All right, let's go over your answers. When did you start writing with a pen or pencil, and why? You have a really neat story about your dad in this poem. So you said, I was about 5 years old when my father taught me how to write a poem. Because at that time, the place that I usually go to school was far away. And that's why they are the ones who acted as my teacher. And you know, and I also used, you know, you talked about you use different kinds of things like cardboard and stuff like that in order to practice your writing skills. So very good. Excellent. And when was the last time you bought some pens or pencils? You said, if my memory serves me right, it was just a week ago because I was able to do some writing in the Ielts examination practice, wherein I usually go into the website and I held some pens and pencils, you know, to help. So this was good. You know, if my memory serves me right, it was just about a week ago. And you said I was able to do some writing practice. So you talked about in the past tense. So good.
Okay.
When you said wherein I usually go to the website. So we're going to say where I went to the website and I held some pens and pencils. So good. And then do you like to write with pens or pencils? Did you like to write with pens or pencils when you were a child? So it's choosing between the two. You said I preferred writing in a pen for the reason that it is permanent, which I think is why a lot of parents say no pens. And you said, of course. And then I believe that I have good penmanship and I usually do some kinds of drawings with that pen in order to hone my skills. So in the beginning, you said I preferred writing.
Okay.
So when you were a child, and then you said, I believe. So make sure you say, I believed that I had good penmanship. And I usually do some kinds, we're going to change to, I usually did some kinds of drawings with that kind of pen in order to hone my skills. So because we have that piece of when you were a child, you need to stay in the past about when you were a child.
Okay.
If you want to bring it into the future or to the present tense, you can say, and even today, I still prefer to use a pen instead of a pencil. So if you're going to say even now or today, you just want to, then you can come into the present tense.
Okay.
All right. So let's talk about the word pollution. Can you pronounce pollution for me? Pollution?
Pollution.
Good. Try not to say you. Don't put the y sound in. It's just
Okay.
Lu. Not you, Lu.
Okay. Pollution.
Yeah, don't even try the word. If I hear the word you, it's not correct. The like Y-O-U, don't put Y-O-U in it. It's pollution.
Pollution.
Pollution. I sound very French, don't I? Pollution.
Pollution.
Perfect. That's it. You dropped the U sound. Very good. The Y sound that makes the U. Pollution. Good. So you said I had a little bit of difficulty in the beginning understanding what pollution was. It noise pollution that you chose?
Yes.
That's a hard one. Wow, that's a really hard one.
Because I think the pollution, the smoke pollution is common. So I guess I need to have a different idea.
It's okay. No, I commend you for trying one that is difficult.
Yes.
It's noise pollution is hard because it's really hard to see the effects of it. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, it can wake you up at night or it can, you know, bother you while you're studying, but does that really hurt anybody? People would say, yes, it does. You know, it can affect people mentally. It can affect, you know, it affects humans more than I think it affects the earth. But yeah, noise pollution is something, and it can cause people to be on edge or to be irritated. So yeah, you can talk about that. And it also can make people not want to live in a particular place because they just need some peace and quiet. So they may choose to move away from the city because of all the noise pollution. And then that affects a lot of other things. Did you also talk a little bit also later in there about traffic as well, like accidents or collisions?
I guess.
Yeah. So here I would just make sure that because noise pollution, if I would pick whatever type of pollution or environmental problem that you have a good amount to talk about. So what do you think you know about the best? What environmental problem are you the most knowledgeable about?
The Clean Air Act.
Air pollution?
environmental law. Yeah,
Okay.
Definitely air pollution, yes.
Okay, good. So you might want to pick one. You can start out by saying, there's a lot of environmental problems in the area where I live, such as noise pollution, water pollution, people putting trash on the ground, as well as factories dumping toxic chemicals into the water. But the one that I would like to focus on, or the one I feel is the most imminent or the most important right now, is, and then you could say that one, is air pollution. So, or air quality, the air quality in our area. That's the problem that we're having here. And so then that right there, that sort of introduction where you list a lot of them, that takes like 15 seconds off your time right there. So you don't have to worry about that later. And it's also a really great introduction as well, rather than jumping right in and saying, air pollution is the problem that we have. It kind of eases the person in and lets them know, hey, he knows a lot about pollution or environmental problems, and now I'm ready to listen to one that he's going to pick. The reason I want you to just pick one and develop it is so that you're not looking unorganized. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, so let's pick that one. Describe a problem that affects the environment where you live. So you working with me right now, let's do it again together. So I'm going to ask you, Alan, you told me there's a lot of problems in your area. Alan, what's the one problem that you want to talk about today?
Yeah, probably the air pollution, wherein there are lots of detrimental effects that happen, especially in the when it comes to emitting fumes, vehicle emitting fumes in along the road, and it causes detrimental effects of the people living in the city. Also, I consider the air pollution is a serious problem in the city, wherein they did not. The people are, aside from getting sick, sometimes the effect of the global warming become intense. So in the future, I believe that it is the number one problem that we're facing. The sea level of the sea level will be rise, and definitely there are lots of weather change happen all over the world, not only in the particular city. So,
as a result of this type of pollution. Yeah.
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
So you've told me about for like a minute and a half what the problem is. How do you think this can be solved? Is this a government problem? Is this an individual person? How can we solve this problem?
I think both individuals and the government will participate of this kind of activities in order to clean the air that we breathe. Individuals should limit the smoking habits in order not to affect other people to inhale it. And also the government will implement the owner of the car that they have a frequent maintenance of the engines, and as a result, they did not emit exhaust fumes on along the way. And
good.
I guess also
keep going. Yeah, I guess also. You mentioned trees. Do you want to put that back in there?
Yes.
Okay.
Of course, I live here in the Middle East, so people here are friendly, eco-friendly. That's why they plant trees in order to absorb the pollution happen in the surroundings. And if ever there is rain, they will quickly absorb the water because knowing that there are lots of trees, it prevents flooding also. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. And so those are just, you can end it. And, if you have time, these are just a few quick solutions or a few solutions that I think could really help, alleviate or mitigate this problem of air pollution. So Good.
Yes.
Do you feel like that's a little bit more organized than what we had before?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I get
Excellent.
it. Much better to have to your new idea. You
Yeah,
to
pick
my
one and develop
mind.
that one well. This is asks you a lot of different questions. So it asks you describe the problem, say what it is, what causes it, and explain what you think can be done to solve it. So that's about 4 different
Mm-hmm.
topics. So what's that? 20, 40, 60, 80. It's like, 25 seconds, 30 seconds each. So what the
Mm-hmm.
problem is, what causes it, what can be done to solve it. Yeah, so it's not too hard when you break it down into those smaller chunks.
Uh-huh.
And then it doesn't seem so overwhelming. Like, oh my gosh, I have to talk about air pollution for 2 minutes. No, for 10 seconds, you need to talk about overall problems. For another 20 seconds, tell me about the one particular problem. And another 20 seconds, what causes it? Another 20 seconds, how can you solve it? And if you have more time, you can say,
Uh,
more if you
Teacher.
want. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think I picked the
You picked
difficult.
the hardest one. That's okay.
Yeah, so
Sometimes it's good to do a hard one so that you get those hard things out of the way. So if
uh-huh.
you do get asked in the future about noise pollution, you already know about it.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Usually it doesn't come up as a part 2 question specifically on noise pollution. But yeah, if it came up in a part 1 or a part 3 about noise pollution, I think you would know what to say. The government could implement rules about when certain noises should not happen. So for instance, if construction is happening on a street, that construction and the noise that goes along with it needs to end by 9 o'clock at night so that the citizens can have a restful night's sleep.
Mm.
So something like that. Or loud music is only allowed, this far away from hospitals or from places where elderly live, things like that.
Ah,
So,
yes,
all right,
yes.
let's keep going. So, this next question is almost the same as what I asked you. So, what are the greatest environmental problems facing your country at present? So you said, in my perspective, the pollution is the number one problem. So I said greatest, and you said number one, which is a great way of saying greatest. So good job. You said is the number one problem that happens in the metropolis area, wherein drivers, they did not pay attention to their engines and maintain the vehicles. Apart from that, factories are making a lot of waste disposal directly into the water, and it becomes polluted. And some other animals like fish die because of this. So here, that one, and you said apart from that, which is a great connector, factories are making a lot of waste disposal directly into the water. End your sentence and then say, instead of saying and, you can say, as a result of this, it becomes polluted, or because of this, it becomes polluted. So that allows you to say different connectors other than and, because when we just say and, we sound like little toddlers or little kids who are saying, I want cookies and ice cream and cake and this and that and that. And you are much higher level than that. You can add some connectors. In addition, or furthermore, this causes fish to die, and it just has a really bad trickle down effect on the overall environment. And then, do you think these are likely to get better or worse in the future? You said right now there are some laws, and they are able to prevent these kinds of activities, and they give a lot of fines in order not to continue doing this kind of activity. So this is, I understand what you're saying, but grammatically, this is a hard sentence to say. In order not to continue doing this kind of activities. So not to continue means to prevent. So let's just say in order to prevent this kind of activity. So that way you don't have so many words and the grammar sounds a little bit better. You said, I guess it will lessen in the future, for the reason that nowadays people are sensitive. So people are more aware, and then you went on to talk about how social media makes us more aware, where your governors and your mayors talk and do live talks and things like that. So yeah. And then I said, this next one is really difficult. Is what you are going to study
I
or what
I
you
guess,
already have studied, basically, is your job going to help you solve any of these problems? Because you're not a student right now, are you? You work,
Yeah.
is that right?
Yeah, I totally lost that on that question.
It's okay. It's okay. I would, if I was asked this question, I would say, I'm sorry, could you restate that for me, please? Or, you know, I didn't quite hear what you said. Could you restate that? And that's okay.
Yeah, for my own point of view, I'm currently working as a medical profession, so it's far different from the thing that the environmental law will do. So I guess I will do some research on how to give importance to the environment. Like nowadays, I'm living in the other part of the world, in the Middle East. I can make an I can make a blog or even some video blog in order to people become aware on what happened on their surroundings. So I don't have any idea on this, right, Mandy?
Yeah, no, that's okay. Well, let's talk about it. So it basically only asks you, do your current studies or do your future plans to study, are they going to be any use in helping solve these problems? So most people are going to say no, because most people are not, you know, going to school for environmental science or for, you know, anything, you know, like that. So the average everyday person, their studies are not going to help them solve, you know, climate change. So basically the answer is no, but how do you develop that and say more is what we're trying to figure out. So let's look at it. So if I was you and I put myself in your shoes, I would say, you know, actually, I'm not a student anymore. I'm working in the medical profession. So my studies or my education is only related to medicine and keeping people healthy. So no, my job does not directly solve these problems. However, as a responsible citizen of this world or as a global citizen, I can, you know, educate myself on things that I can do individually to help, you know, with environmental problems. For instance, you know, I have heard or read an article or something, you know, and this is a hard one because this question is part 3, but it asks directly about you. So I'm trying to keep part 3, but also it's asking about you. So you could say, for instance, you know, I've recently read that climate change is not a global problem. It is a lot of individual problems. So for my part, I have decided to take plastic bags out of my, you know, stop using plastic bags and use reusable bags, because I know that plastic is not something that breaks down very easily. On top of that, when I leave a room, I try to make sure I turn off the lights just to save a little bit of electricity here and there. So yeah, unfortunately, my job is to heal people and not the earth.
Yeah, exactly.
But that doesn't mean I can't do my small part. So that's the only thing I can really think of as an answer off the top of my head. But this one is hard. I'm sure people are gonna, I hope. See, the chat is very suspiciously quiet right now because none of them know how to answer it either.
But your answer great.
They're sitting there thinking,
lots of idea.
I don't know. So, but, and then the next one, should countries try to solve climate change problems together, like all of us together, or should they solve it just the Philippines, just China, just America, just Russia? So you said, I guess, individually. You said, I guess they should solve it individually. And this is your opinion. It doesn't mean you're right or you're wrong. So I can disagree with you, but I still am going to judge your English, not your ideas. So you said because the weather from nation to nation for every nation is different. Like here in the UAE, usually it's hot in the summer, so they put an artificial rain to give life to the trees. So I understand that the weather is different, but how is the UAE solving climate change on its own? So that's where we need to focus. So you have a good beginning. You said, I guess, individually, because the weather in every nation is different. So that means the solution in each country is going to be unique to that country. So take, for example, in the UAE, we have really, really hot summers. And, what does that cause you to do that contributes to climate change? Does that mean you use a lot of carbon fuels? What does that mean you do in the UAE? Like, how do people contribute to the climate problem in the UAE?
Yeah, I guess the planting of trees is the number one thing that they do. And
that's also how they help. What do they do to hurt the environment? So that's what I'm asking you. What does the United Arab Emirates do that hurts the environment? Do they cut down a lot of trees? Do they
I think
do they use a lot of fuel, like fossil fuels?
Yeah, I guess they use a lot of fuels.
I don't know much about the UAE, except I feel like maybe I know that it has a lot of growth right now. Like, is there a lot of buildings being built, a lot of areas being developed? Is that true or not?
Yes, exactly. It's true, especially in the Dubai.
In the Dubai, in the big cities. Yeah, so you could say here in the UAE, there's a lot of growth happening and a lot of building going on. So individually, our country, or our country could or should really think about how that building is affecting the environment around it. So are we taking a natural habitat from another animal, or are we using too many fossil fuels to develop our country and boost our economy? So how can we, one way that we can combat that, and that we are doing, is by planting lots of trees to offset the pollution that we're putting into the air through all of this new development. I'm not really good at it. I would say, again, I'm going to say to you, you have picked a difficult stance. If you pick the other stance, it's easier. And the reason I say that is because you could bring up the Paris Climate Accords. If you've heard of those before, or you could bring up, there's the other climate meetings that world leaders come to. I think Southeast Asia has ASEAN or something. There's these different regions that come together and say, look, yes, we have our borders, but the earth, pollution has no borders. It doesn't care what country you're in. It's going to go across any country. So for example, you could say, I think countries should really come together to solve these kinds of problems. And the reason being is because even though we have different countries and borders, climate change doesn't care if you live in the United States or if you live in the UAE or in the Philippines. It's going to happen everywhere. So for example, right now, the wildfires that are taking place in a lot of the Mediterranean and in the United States, that pollution is going across the entire globe and is going to affect everyone. So therefore, everyone needs to come together and maybe, have you ever heard the term pool your resources, POOL, like to put them together?
Yes,
or to pool their resources, or to share knowledge, or, if the Philippines has some really, really smart people on climate change, but America doesn't have anyone, how are they going to fix it? Well, the Philippines can share, their knowledge. Does that make sense? So if you
Yes.
share knowledge, it's easier, and you can kind of equate it to working in a team, you know, many, the saying is many hands make light work, meaning that the more people you have to do something, the easier it is. And so you have the ACN meeting about climate change is one thing that you can mention, the Paris Climate Agreement, which means we're going to cut down on certain gases, particularly carbon emission. And that kind of puts pressure. Like if China says, oh, we're going to cut down by 2035, then of course America is going to be like, oh, we're going to cut down by 2034, you know, because there's that competition.
Yes.
So I just think for you, Alan, and for anyone who's answering this, the easier one is to say we should work together. It's just easier.
Yes,
and I'm
that's
all
easier.
about easy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you don't have to say Paris Climate Accords because that's kind of difficult, but you can say the Paris Climate Agreement. You can talk about, you know, sharing of scientific resources or sharing environmental resources and knowledge. And you can talk about, you know, of course, working as a team makes things happen quicker and more easily than if we work on our own. And if we're fighting against each other rather than working together, nothing will get done.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I said a lot. I'm sorry I took so much of your time. Do you have any questions?
No, thank you for your time, and I learned a lot, especially the you shared.
No problem. Thank you. Gladys, did you have anything you wanted to add for Alan? Or have you already practiced with him too?
So his performance with you now is commendable compared earlier. So he has this idea of him. So congratulations, Sir Alan.
Thank you, Ma'am
Alan
Glad.
likes to challenge himself.
Yes.
And Alan, I know that's hard. Like if you're a person that's like, oh yeah, I can do the hard work. It's really hard to choose the easy one, but I'd say for the Ielts, choose the easy answer.
Easy one.
And the easy answer is the one that you know the most about. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ma'am Glad. Mandy.
Bye.
Because your exam is already near, so you need to push yourself harder. Okay? So
Yes,
I hope,
exactly.
like Danny, you've gained your confidence on answering the questions in your exam. Okay, thank you, Sir Alan.
Thank you, Ma'am Glad. Thank you, Mandy.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Andy, so what will be your plan this weekend before closing it?
This weekend, my children have asked to use their skateboards. So
be ready
maybe
for first aid.
yes, that's what I need as a nurse with me. Yeah. So
it's fun, but
it is fun, but dangerous. But you know, you got to let them try.
I know you'll try first before
I actually broke my wrist once when I was a teenager on a roller skates. So I'm a little nervous, but I'll give it a try. I'll try again.
You can do it. So as always, Mandy, thank you very much for being with us.
Of course,
so,
thank you.
Good night, everyone. So Mr. M, bye. Bye,
Goodbye.
Mandy.
Bye. Have a good day.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.